I'll open. Good evening, it's the Zoning Board of Appeals. It's October 17th, 2019 at 7:15 PM. We're in the Littleton Town offices at 37 Shattuck Street, room 103, Littleton, Mass. Time is 7:15 PM. We have a couple of administrative matters, and our first hearing will be called at 7:25, the scheduled time. Minutes, I had reviewed the minutes and sent them back, so my comments are already incorporated. Does anybody else have any?
I do on page 2. End of the second paragraph. The Cowley stated the board had granted carports in that area several times. Yates asked for example, was not given one. Actually, I did. I gave him the example of, just take that out. I gave you the example of the guy who had already built his carport and came before us. That was in the Long Lake area. And we discussed that.
So I'm just taking, we'll
Just
the
take
last
out.
sentence. Okay. Ha, he beat you. Thank you.
He came from outside. So we're on page 2. Please remove the last sentence of the first paragraph.
Next.
That was pretty much it.
Anyone else have comments on the minutes?
Well, the last page, it says it was voted by Cowley, seconded by Yates, and voted 5-0 to adjourn the meeting. And then it says it was moved by Stewart, seconded by Yates, and voted 5-0
So it means
to
you
adjourn.
really adjourned that meeting.
I really enjoyed
I think we
Close
adjourned twice.
the, or close the hearing.
Okay.
I don't care if you want to cross me out.
All right,
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
it was late that night.
That's okay. Gotta leave something in so we feel useful.
Okay, the next thing we had, proposed zoning bylaw amendments. We've been talking about the fees and the collection of fees here. The residential application has always been $200. We haven't gone up in years, and our budget is pretty much fixed. We have the increases that are automatic for the administrative assistant. But the other things are absolutely necessary in our budget. We have advertising, postage, and office supplies. Those vary based on the length. For advertising, it varies based on the length of the ad. For postage, it varies based on the number of applicants and the number of abutters we have, and postage. And then office supplies is just based on how many resources we use, based on how many postcards we send out with notices and things. So our budget's never varied very much, and FinCom has never had a problem with it. But what's happened is, Janet has been asking the applicant to bring the publication fee to the hearing. So she waits until it's been published, we have a bill, then she divides the publication by as many applications as were posted or advertised and asks them to bring it. And the problem is, when people don't bring it, then she has to track them down. So we've been talking about just asking for an average dollar amount with each application. Whatever doesn't get spent is just going to go into our ZBA budget for supplies, and will keep us from having to ask for any increases at FinCom in the next year. If the advertising goes over sort of the weighted average that we ask people to bring, then we should have a little build up in there from the ones that are under. So Shelley did an average of the year and said it runs somewhere between $50 and $75, and she suggests that we collect $65. When I saw her bill tonight, it looked to me like there were 3 postings on it. They were 90, 90, and 65. So that's not a full year average, but it certainly is higher than the 65 average. I don't really care either way. If the board's pleasure is to just go with the 65 recommended by Shelley, that's fine. I would think 75. Right now, our residential applicants are paying $300 for a hearing. That's $200 for the board, $75 for the mandatory filing fee at the Registry of Deeds, and $25 for the abutter notifications.
And we're in the black.
Postage, postcards.
Yeah, so
It looks
I
like we're
think
doing
we should go
okay.
75 just to make it a round number. So when you ask people to pay for the application, it's $375. And that way, if postage goes higher, we'll have a little bit in there. And if advertising goes higher, we'll have a little bit in there. In other towns, like in Westford, for instance, I just filed for one, and it was higher than 300 to start with, and then I had to pay the paper, and the paper was 100 something, so.
That
What's your
seems
pleasure?
reasonable to me. I like keeping our fees where they're at, because we are $700 in the black, and that's not too much, and it's not too little. It seems like a good place to be. But $75 seems like a safe place to be on the publication. So I would make a motion that we set the cost of the publications at $75 per applicant.
Second.
All in favor, signify, oh. I'm gonna have Katie sit on this hearing, because she hasn't been called on as an alternate, so why don't you sit on this vote, okay? All those in favor signify by saying
Aye.
Aye.
thank you. Okay, the next thing, thank you. The next item on the agenda was, Mark, maybe we'll do this after the hearing, but this one was the one we talked about where the 6-foot fence ends up to be higher than 6 foot when the panels are 6 feet
Yeah,
and the
we always
decorations
have
are
some kind
higher.
of cap on the post.
And so there was a suggestion by the building department as to how to deal with that. We'll do that after this hearing because I don't want to have the vote interrupt what the applicant's going to be presenting tonight. And then signs is an interesting situation. I don't know if everyone's had a chance to read this suggestion from the building department, but I guess they're having a problem with temporary signs advertising commercial space for lease or sale are exceeding the 9 square feet limit and staying up.
I have questions
Longer
about
period
all
of
this, but
time.
do you want, we were past time to open this hearing, so
open
let's
this hearing and
move
flip
this.
off. Okay. So it's 7:25 PM. I'm going to open the hearing, case number 935A, 547 Great Road. Petitioner Georgiana Gagnon seeks a variance pursuant to 17331, intensity of use to allow for a fence. Kitty, I'm going to make you the voting alternate, please appoint you the voting alternate. And it's very informal, just present your discussion, then the board will ask questions, and then if there's anyone in the room that wants to speak to it, we'll ask them. And then we'll read the building inspector comments if we have any.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Can you all hear me fine without my?
Oh, that's for the,
That's actually
that's for
not
the
for us.
telescope.
The mic doesn't go here, it's up to them. Good evening. I'm Dan Barton. I'm one of the principals at Markle Architects in Harvard. We enjoy doing quite a bit of work in Littleton and the surrounding area. It's my pleasure to be here tonight to represent GIA and Soaring Hawk Meditation Center at 547 Great Road. GIA has spent the last, I'm going to say now, 5 years almost, lovingly renovating that building, which is the historic poorhouse from 1861 in the town, also known as the Alms House. The application tonight, I hope, is fairly straightforward, and that the materials that we've provided are somewhat self-explanatory. But quite simply, the house itself, the original Poor Farm, has not moved, and as it was renovated, the back portion, or the old bunkhouse, was replaced in almost the exact same footprint, size, and scale as the original, so the structure itself on the property has not moved. What is also not moved is the existing septic system that was part of the property. What we did do is create off of Beaver Brook, and you'll remember this, perhaps some of you who were involved in the original application years and years ago, but we created a new entrance drive.
Wasn't that
off of
many years
Beaver
ago.
Brook. It wasn't that many years ago. And created an accessible parking lot and an accessible pathway to the building. So the building is now fully accessible. There are spaces and activities that are available on 2 floors of the building, and each of those floors is accessible. There are also a couple of parking spaces and another accessible entrance off of the old original driveway to that property. So what we're here tonight to seek your approval on is to place a fence between the Poor Farm property and the industrial commercial uses that are off to the south side. It's a bit of a unique setting in that this is sort of the last residential property before the industrial commercial district starts. And although Soaring Hawk Meditation Center is in fact a commercial use, It also still maintains a residential use in the back portion in the bunkhouse. There's still a residential use that exists there. It's just a little one-bedroom quarters for either a caretaker or somebody who happens to be using the property for a particular event. Can continue to use that space. But the center itself and the property that it sits on is really quite agrarian in nature. It's a historic house. It looks much more like a house than it does a commercial building. And if any of you have had the opportunity to go by and see all of the work that's been done on the site, it really is very much a garden-oriented property. It's a beautiful new oval flower garden that was put on the north side of the building. There's quite a bit of landscaping that's taken place, natural out back near the rain garden. There's a labyrinth, and the lawn and the trees and the historic benches are all cared for and are scattered all around the property. If we place the fence at the 50-foot setback line, it goes right in front of the labyrinth, it cuts right into the septic field, it doesn't work. The only reason we're requesting approval from the board is because the fence as designed, and I think you have it in front of you, but I can. The fence as it's designed has two components that would be above the 6-foot level. Number one, and I believe it's relevant to the conversation you may be having following this, a typical fence, if it's a 6-foot section, if it's designed and detailed in a conventional and traditional manner, it's going to have posts that sit a touch higher than the top rail and may have some sort of a decorative or finished cap so that it sheds water and it also looks finished. In this particular case, the center section of the fence alone is being designed to be a decorative garden structure. It's really intended to be a backdrop to plantings that are going to be there. And there are myriad activities that are going to happen on the site in that location, around the labyrinth, around the patio area, in the grass space, and we want a backdrop to those activities that's not looking in towards the parking lot of the industrial properties next door. And given that this doesn't have any effect on the Beaverbrook side, and I don't think anyone in Beaverbrook has any concerns with the way that the property has been developed and cared for, Gia did take the time to go and approach both of her abutters on the industrial commercial side. There were no concerns with doing this whatsoever. They'll be looking at a fairly attractive fence as well. So it's 118 feet long, it's just on that southern edge, and again, the relief is being requested because if we set it in the 50-foot setback line because of its height, it really is an undue hardship relative to the other uses that take place on the site.
Can I just want to ask you, the plan that you show is just showing the fence at a length of about 118 feet.
That's all
And
it
that's
is.
scaled on this plan.
It is scaled correctly on
So
the
you
plan.
don't want to go further, you just want that little section?
That's correct. It's really intended to
As a
sort of
visual stop.
relate to the building itself, and I failed to mention, you'll notice that it is not parallel to the property line. It is in fact parallel to the structure of the building itself, because that made sense when
And
we
that
when we
center,
were citing it.
the very center tallest panel, that's not a doorway of any sort.
It
that's
is,
just
it
back
is
up.
not. It is simply a backdrop. And in your package, we provided you with two different options that were being considered, one that had a lattice and the other one that had a board. And either one still has the same shape and overall character.
Oh, I see.
It really is just a preference, but since we hadn't made the ultimate decision yet which one to go with, you got the benefit of looking at both.
I don't care. I just have one other question, Gia.
Yes.
For a while, you were doing like small gathering receptions or teas. Are you doing any of that there?
I'm planning to do those. I've had, a couple of small events like that, but.
Just curious, I mean, in
Yeah.
terms of giving you business.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, thank you. And to that point, you should all be aware of the fact, and Michelle knows this well, until
Janet.
town sewer,
Yeah.
what's that?
Janet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We all do it.
I'm so sorry.
I'm only correcting you because I called Michelle on the way in.
Until town sewer comes to the property, we're limited to having 43 individuals inside the building because that's what the septic system can handle. We actually are coming to the Board of Health on Tuesday of next week to seek a creative proposal that during the limited times of the year, during the nicer weather, when there could be an outdoor event with more people, because you all have approved events up to 100 people, we'd like to bring in portable luxury trailers as a creative solution. So we think that that's a great idea, and we've proposed to the Board of Health some ways to put some controls and some regulations around that, but also help to support the success of the business after all the investment in the property over all these many years. Do
Can I-
something until the sewer comes through.
Can I congratulate you on what a beautiful job you've done on that building? It took a while, it took you a while. I wondered if you had given up in driving by it sometimes.
She hasn't.
I was
she has
here when you
never-
came before.
Never given up, and I would really invite all of you at some point to please
It-
come.
it- it looks
and
absolutely
walk around.
gorgeous.
Inside and out, it's a beautiful property, and there's even more little finishing touches that are being, talked about in terms of plantings, screening. It really is a lovely property.
And I think your little arched backdrop will make a nice, whatever, backdrop for wedding pictures or whatever you're going to do with
Exactly.
it.
This is a really effective photo.
Yeah, thank you. And I brought you colored ones in
Yeah,
case.
no, I
you
think
wanted
we
them,
understand.
But
And the fence is.
we thought it was
beautiful.
self-explanatory.
I appreciate that you're making it parallel to the structure. It's great, so.
She's an architect too.
Okay.
So.
I'm an architect, so, yeah,
Is everyone okay if I make a motion to close?
yes.
1 minute, please. Do we have anyone who's attended tonight that would like to speak to this application?
I'm just supporting them, so.
And no other board comments?
No?
Let me read the building inspector comments into the
There are no
record,
comments.
please. Public hearing. 547 Great Road, the petitioner seeks a variance pursuant to section 173-31 intensity of use for a proposed fence 118 feet long, varying in height from 6 feet to 10 feet, 8.5 inches along the property line between 5 Beaverbrook Road, formerly 547 Great Road, and 545 Great Road. The zoning district for both properties is Industrial A. The required side and rear setbacks for Industrial A zone for an accessory building or structure is 50 feet. The proposal is for the fence to be 1 foot to 11 feet off the property line, as shown on the submitted plan. A hardship does exist based on the location of the sewage disposal system, drainage, parking, and other existing site features. It would not be possible to meet the 50-foot setback. No further comment. So the board has to first find that there's a hardship owing to conditions.
I apologize. I said, I read no further comment and thought that we didn't have to read that in.
Oh,
I apologize.
you're excused.
Okay.
Now, you may make your motion.
I make a motion that we close the hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Someone want to make a motion to the application?
I move we grant a variance at 547 Great Road for the purpose of a 118-foot long fence that varies in height up to 10 foot 8.5 inches along the, what is that, the southern property line?
Southeast.
Now,
Do you want to call it a little higher than that in case?
well, we
At
can
some
say
point that-
11 feet. And the other thing is, since it varies with the setback, should we just refer to this drawing?
I'm going to say, word it the way that the applicant worded it, and I'll put plus or minus in the
Okay.
decision, and substantially is shown.
This fence will be between 1 feet and 11 feet off the property line, as shown on the plan dated March 17th, 2017.
I'll say plan submitted with the application,
Yeah.
okay? Second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pardon? If it helps, there is a date on the plan, 9/18/2019, which is when it was revised to put the fence on it. But
Okay. 9,
It's September 18th, 2019.
thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
All those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Thank you for your
Thank you.
presentation.
We're looking forward to that beautiful fence. We'll go stand in front of it and take selfies.
I don't care whether you put up
Group-
boards or lattices.
Group shot.
I'm sure either will
Is
look
that-
nice.
Is the fence high enough that you're not gonna be able to see the buildings behind you, or?
You'll still
I
see
know, I don't
them
know
when
last
you're
one.
right
When you're
there.
right, the
Yeah,
fence.
if you're using that space, the idea is that, you know, then.
Pictures.
It wouldn't be worth putting like big trees behind the fence that would grow. In the 3 houses I've ever bought, the first thing within weeks of moving in, I planted pine trees between ourselves next to our neighbor. 30 years later, they're used, but it makes for an effective screen, but, yeah.
You don't wanna wait.
You don't want to wait 30 years. Yeah, well, hurry up and plant them.
Sure, good to see you.
Nice to see you.
No, actually, no, they're too tall.
All right, well, this will be the earliest we've ever adjourned. If you want to adjourn, I would like you to please look at the comments on the fences, sheds, and signs.
I have a couple comments to make on that.
Go and make them then. Let's talk about it for 15 minutes. and then
Okay,
we'll-
so my recollection from when I started here 10, 12 years ago was that fences, we generally were 5 feet, and then we had the cap up to 6 feet. I'm okay with putting a cap higher than 6 feet, but I really, if we do that, if we say that you can have a fence up to 6 feet and the cap on top of that, I don't want to be here in 2 years where people have, you know, if we say 6 foot 6 inches, where they're coming back, they put in fences at 6 foot 6 inches, and then they have the post caps above that. So if we raise this from above 6 feet, am I making sense what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah, but
When we
what-
raise it above 6 feet, I want us to delineate that the fence is 6 feet high, but the end posts can be 3, 4, 5, 6 inches, I don't care. But I want to make sure we're delineating between the height of the fence and the height of the posts.
Don't lose sight of this comment. We're not regulating how high fences can be. This bylaw is only saying that a fence over a certain height is defined as a structure, which then has to meet sideline setbacks.
Okay.
And so I agree with everything you just said, but I also think if you're going to put a fence up in a situation like the carport of the last meeting, where that fence is sitting right on the property line and could be obscuring the view out of the only windows of the next door neighbor, that may be something we want to have before this board to at least hear what the arguments are for not having it too close to the property line.
Oh,
Otherwise,
so you
it
don't wanna
sits back
change
10
it?
feet. I don't mind changing it
I-
to say 6 feet for the panels.
I think that enforcing it the way it's enforced now is really onerous on the typical fence. And maybe it's just a matter of, you know, saying 6-foot panel fences.
Posts not
Posts
to-
and caps may rise 4 to 6 6 inches.
I like
4
3 to 4
whatever.
inches
Yeah.
more.
And that may be the better way to do it. I agree with you then, I don't know if you can readily buy 7-foot panels, but, you know.
Well, it says 78 inches here, so we could say 6-foot-high panels with the posts and caps not exceeding 78 inches.
You know, how
Well,
many-
Even 2 inches is.
the problem with specifying
That's-
panel size is you could erect a fence with a 6-foot panel that's 2 feet off the ground.
Yeah.
So I think what you want to do is somehow reference the absolute height of the fence, whether they want to use a 1-foot panel, 6-foot panel, or whatever.
72 and 6 is 78, so let's just amend the bylaw to say fences over 6.5 feet high. That gives you 78
No, because
inches.
then they're gonna go the 6.5 feet high, and then
Plus
2
the
years from
cap.
now, we'll be plus a cap.
Right.
And so I don't wanna do that. I wanna
Or
say,
6.5, including
Yeah, you
the
have to.
cap.
or,
Yeah,
or,
post and cap.
or, I don't even,
Post
and why do we have to have 6-foot-high caps? Aren't most caps 6-inch high caps?
Well,
Why can't we have just, I mean, most caps are 2 to 4 inches kind of thing. I would just.
Well, again, most fences are not installed flush with the ground, so a
That's-
6-foot
that's
panel is gonna be
exactly
at
what I was
least 2
gonna
to
say.
3 inches
Right.
above.
Right.
And then you add another 2, 3,
Right.
4 inches above that.
So it gives
Well, like
them
I said,
ground
we used to say it was 5 foot, and then it was 6 foot
Just
with
stop
the
again
cap.
and remember that we're not dictating how
Just
short.
what
I
they
know,
have
and
to
we're
come
dictating
forward.
on whether or not they have to come in front of
When they have
us.
to come before us so that the neighbor who's affected has a say in it. Because I can put a 10-foot fence up if I move it 10 feet in off the property line. This is not saying fences have a height restriction.
But it is, the concern I have is, there are standard size fences, you go to Home Depot, they have a 6-foot fence. And you try to go to put a 6-foot fence up that you bought standard, you know, plastic, you can't actually cut it or expand it.
Right.
And because the posts are higher, they have to go spend $375 to come see us to put in 10 posts that are 4 inches higher than the fence, or 6 inches depending on the tractor.
I would give them 4 inches, and they don't have to come see us.
Well, then you go 6.5 or
I-
6.
I don't
would
want to
do
say,
6.
I would say that the panels cannot, the fence cannot be higher than 6 foot without coming in front of us with posts up to,
So usually the post
3 or
is
4 inches
at
higher.
least a couple inches bigger than the panel.
Right.
And then you got
Plus
these
the
fancy
cap.
metal caps that
Fine,
go
then
on,
do
some
6
have lights
inches.
built into
I'm
them.
okay.
If it's staggered in height, the
Yeah.
one on the left,
Yeah.
you know, so.
Fine, do 6 inches. then.
6.5.
But 6 feet, not for the panels, and I'm
No,
gonna do
fences over 6.5 feet high, including post and cap.
Post and cap.
And any, post cap and any
Yeah,
decorative.
just so this,
Post cap and any decorative thing,
Yeah.
Decorative.
decorative thing.
Thing being a technical word.
It is, very tough.
Accoutrement. Any decorative accoutrement.
Accoutrement, that's a good one.
Accoutrement, is that the word I want?
Accoutrement is a good one,
Accoutrement.
yeah. That would be our recommendation back.
Okay.
They can draft it and return it here for us to vote, okay? And then sheds, I like the fact that, and this is a conveyancing thing more than a zoning thing, but we very often go to a closing and find that the plot plan guy will report that a shed is too close to the property line, and it puts the brakes on a lot of deals until we resolve the problem. So I like the fact that somebody who buys a shed, again at Home Depot, and brings it home and plops it down, who might not know about the structure definition, is not automatically in violation. So I sort of like the wording, to keep the wording that says sheds not greater than 120 square feet should be excluded from the definition of structure. 120 is what, 10 by 12?
I don't agree with that. That's a big shed.
That is a big shed.
And if it's like 1 foot from my property line, that would not be good.
And
I don't-
sheds are all over 6 feet tall.
Yeah, you wouldn't like my 8-foot, I had an 8 by 12-foot shed in the last house I lived in. And it was maybe 6 inches from the property line.
Yeah,
It was also
I
2 stories.
Yeah,
understand.
and I have a cousin who
understand.
did that and has like animals and all kinds of stuff. I mean, I could see making a smaller setback for 120 square feet or less.
What if we did no concern about the setback to a shed smaller than 120 square feet?
No, what?
No, it's still too
No,
big.
I think you should have some sort of
No, I'm
setback.
saying a smaller size.
Yeah, but
Yeah, but
even the
it's
smaller
not
size
greater
one
than-
should be set back like at least 3 feet or 4
Yeah.
feet. So you can get all the way around it without wandering on somebody else's property.
And you know, sometimes, I mean, these sheds are full of chickens, and I don't want
And really,
chickens on
if
my
they're so
property.
careless as to plop a shed down, why should we change our zoning bylaw for that?
I like what we got. I,
So all sheds have to come before us, no matter how small or big?
Well, if they're 10 feet or less.
So if you move them 10 feet off the property line, we don't have to ask
I
permission.
think a neighbor should have a chance to weigh in on
It's
that.
still there.
I do
It's
too.
still there on Boston.
what,
46
does it matter if it's just sitting on the ground or if it's sitting on a foundation, either sonotubes or whatever, so it's a more permanent?
The zoning bylaw, the definition of structure is, this is 9th edition of the Mass Building Code. 1-story detached accessory structures such as tool and storage sheds, playhouses, exempt from building permits, sheds where the floor area is not greater than 120 square feet.
Or it doesn't matter if it's
but that's just,
laid on the ground?
all
or on
towns-
the foundation?
They're built like boats.
That says
Yeah.
you don't need to go to Roland for a building permit. You can build your own little shed at 120 square feet without getting a building permit. So if you don't have to get a building permit, all the more reason why, as I say, some people are gonna plunk it down without knowing the 10-foot offset, because they won't have asked anyone. That doesn't mean we can't govern it, but you're right, if it's not on a foundation, and I get to a closing, I can get a backhoe to move it, I guess.
I moved my shed with a backhoe.
Yeah.
you know, I think what we have with the sheds should just stay, because they're such a nuisance to neighbors, and they cause so many problems.
And they're just talking about square footage here, they're not talking about height.
And it's just, I think,
Well, it did say one story.
I think we should, I mean, one of the
Yeah,
reasons
well,
we're
whatever
here is to
definition of
protect
one story
neighbors.
is.
And I think we need to continue to protect neighbors.
Okay, so I think the consensus of this board is sheds should stay where they are. That, back to the building department, please. I don't have a problem either way, I don't disagree with you.
What about signs?
I'm having a problem with,
Permanent
This
real
one.
estate signs on commercial properties.
yeah, but this
Well, even on
market,
residential property, right, so they're still, they're only supposed to be up there for 30 days, and, you know, the houses don't sell in 30 days, so you're supposed to go and move the sign, or?
I kind of have a conscientious objection to that 50 square foot sign up on Taylor Street from that rabid individual who's in a residential house that keeps posting Trump and sort of killed 3 sales already. Did you see that guy?
Yeah.
He posts all
I
sorts
still
of.
can't figure out if he's for or
No one
against.
can.
Is he for or against?
So the signs that Shelley's referring to are the freestanding signs that are like alongside the road, because you can put them on the building in, in any form. We have pretty generous, but I'm thinking of like where, by the gravel pit.
Yeah,
There's just
distribution
a lot
way
of
is
signs there, and they've been there for years and
forever.
years and years.
And they're huge, and
Yeah.
and we have other people coming in, the residents in there who say their signs aren't being seen, and they need to be larger because of these for sale or for rent signs of the commercial properties.
Well, I think the size of the signs certainly ought to be regulated, but I don't want to tell you as a marketer that you have to take your sign down after 30 days. What do you do, take it down for 2 days and put it back up again if my house didn't sell?
But that's what the law says right now.
So what,
That's
do we have,
ridiculous.
do we have a limit on the size of temporary signs?
I don't
Yes.
think that they're
Nine
going
9
to,
square feet,
they're,
excuse me.
they're not talking about enforcing residential real estate
No,
signs.
she has.
Yeah, that's what she's talking
yes.
about, yeah.
Residential real estate, and frankly, commercial lease signs too, that, we're in a terrible market for commercial space right now, you can't take those down. You have to have them up.
Like the old,
But
Should I,
once
should I
you-
recuse myself from this conversation
Well,
being
no,
a
no,
real
no. Well,
estate
first of
broker?
all, 9 square feet would encompass the typical real estate.
Oh, it does, my sign,
Yeah.
my real estate signs are smaller than 9
But the
square feet.
commercial real estate signs
Well,
that
wait
are
a
just
minute, by the time you
permanent,
add my-
I don't know,
I mean, like the one with
Go
the
after
DCU
them.
used to be in center of town. They moved 2 years ago?
That's
That
not
sign's been there
always-
since then.
And they could have that, they could put a sign on the building and it would be perfectly legal. Because
Instead of
you have
out
a
there.
lot of, we have the signs for commercial.
Didn't they put their sign over the sign that used to be the bank sign on the street? So technically, it's already a sign that was approved, they just changed the wording of it.
It's bigger though,
Is it bigger?
I think it's bigger.
I thought it was just covered there, but.
If it just covers it, probably fine, but,
But I'm thinking of like the signs along, Air Road, there's just a lot of for lease signs.
so my position, my preference would be
My real
9 square
estate
feet
signs
limit.
are big, with the 2 panels in them, but they're 8 square feet, because they're 24 inches wide. The panels are each 6 inches, and the main body is a little bit bigger than, less than 24, is 18. So 6, 18, and 6, and then the little things between them, and 24 inches wide. My real estate sign is a big real estate sign compared to others. So 9 square feet is a generous real estate sign. They do not need to be residential real estate signs certainly do not need to be bigger than 9 square feet.
What's that blackboard?
That's huge.
That's probably 15 square feet
Is that
or
about
20 square.
4 by
feet,
6?
yeah.
A little bit more.
5, 4,
That's 25 square feet or something?
yeah, so mine are,
Under something?
and as the standard market goes, mine is a big real estate sign with 2 panels, one with my name on it, one with for sale on it, and then one with my business name on it, and the phone number.
I don't see that they're gonna go after residential real estate signs unless they're gigantic. But these commercial property signs,
Well, that and the other temporary signs that are bothering me are, some people already have political signs up for the 2020 election.
I don't think we can,
That's a tough one,
isn't
because
that
they're
a
already-
freedom of speech
Well,
issue.
but that's a sign,
I
and
understand
it's a
what it is.
temporary sign, and so, should political signs be up for a year and a half, or 2 years before an election? I don't think it should.
All right, we're not gonna reach consensus on this, and I said 15 more minutes. Let's
Just
table
to
this
play
for-
devil's advocate, why do we have sign regulations other than for aesthetic reasons?
Aesthetic reasons.
Otherwise,
So
it
why,
would be,
so why don't we have other aesthetic regulations, like people have to keep their lawn mowed and no garbage in the front yard? I'm just,
Because signs are,
Because you couldn't possibly.
I just, as long as everybody admits that, yeah, this is purely an aesthetic.
but every
It's a libertarian in me talking.
town in the state has sign regulations.
Oh, yeah.
And Massachusetts is one of the few states that has serious regulations about billboards on their highways.
Oh, I agree with them.
And I
but
love
purely
that,
from an
quite
aesthetic
frankly,
point of
because
view.
I
Yeah.
love looking at the foliage and not seeing
Look,
billboards. Isn't it nice?
One of the nice things about Europe is they don't do billboards.
Isn't it lovely?
the other thing that really bugs me about signs is the ones that you go down the road and someone's decided that they buy ugly houses or whatever it happens to be, and they just simply staple their sign to a telephone pole someplace. And it's like, you
Well,
know,
that's illegal.
We got the.
well, yeah, but they just do it.
Safety issue, but yeah.
But who?
They did it
who
recently
goes
to-
around
they-
and takes them down then?
They don't, nobody does.
Well, yes, they
I
did.
do, they put them in front of my house.
We have a story. You want to tell
Not
it?
on the air.
But they did put up one of
Later.
those on a
All
telephone
right,
pole.
we've
and-
exhausted the time period for this meeting and the patience level of the chair.
That being key.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
I so moved.
Oh, I thought I.
Cheryl just moved it, you
Then I
can second
second.
it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Turn us off.
That's how I end up with double.